Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking one of the most misunderstood and, honestly, most fascinating shifts happening in financial tech right now. We're diving into Robinhood's recent launch of their Robinhood chain and their massive push to bring stock tokens to over 120 countries. On the surface, sure, it just looks like another crypto feature. But underneath, it is an absolute masterclass in redefining how assets move, how they're packaged, and how platforms lock in users for the long haul. So let's jump right in. If you caught their July 2026 press release, it sounds like a total mainstream revolution, doesn't it? They're talking about bringing 24/7 global stock trading directly to the blockchain, integrating decentralized finance products, and throwing in AI agentic trading just for good measure. They're pitching this Robinhood chain as a financial-grade Layer 2 network, custom-built for real-world assets. The marketing here is undeniably compelling, giving the entire globe non-stop 24/7 access to U.S. equities. But this raises a really fundamental question. When you buy these heavily marketed assets, are they actually giving you equity? Are you getting real ownership in companies like Apple or Tesla? Because when the marketing screams stocks on the blockchain, everyday consumers naturally assume they're getting the exact same legal rights they'd get at a traditional old-school brokerage. Well, as we dig into the research, we find a very different story. Section 1. Illusion versus reality when it comes to stock tokens. To truly understand Robinhood's strategy here, we have to shatter the illusion of what these tokens actually are. The contrast in their own official legal disclaimers is pretty wild. Think about it. Real ownership gives you voting rights, a legal claim on corporate equity, the ability to literally show up to a shareholder meeting. But these new Robinhood stock tokens, they're explicitly defined as tokenized debt securities and derivative contracts. Yes, they offer economic exposure, meaning if the stock price goes up, your token value goes up. But they give you absolutely zero shareholder rights, no voting power, and literally no legal relationship with the underlying company. And this isn't just some boring legal technicality. It has massive real-world implications. Back in 2025, OpenAI publicly warned that the tokenized stock offered on Robinhood simply wasn't real equity. We've even got SEC Commissioner Hester Pierce explicitly warning that these third-party tokens carry major counterparty risks and could potentially be classified as security-based swaps. Robinhood's own EU app goes as far as warning users of total principal loss and the insolvency risk of Robinhood Europe itself. So you aren't just taking on market risk here, you are taking on platform risk. Section 2. The true goal. Asset velocity. Okay, so if Robinhood isn't actually selling real stocks, and they're inviting all this intense regulatory scrutiny, why go through the trouble of building an entire blockchain for this? The answer is asset velocity. These tokens are basically a regulatory Trojan horse. At a traditional brokerage, you buy a stock, and it just sits there. The platform makes a tiny fee once, and that's it. But in this new cycle, a user buys the tokenized asset, uses it as collateral, borrows funds against it, and trades again, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Robinhood is turning a static balance into dynamic raw material. They can monetize the exact same user multiple times over. Industry watchers are definitely catching on to this playbook. CoinDesk hit the nail on the head when they described this as Robinhood's shift towards an everything exchange. They are transforming the traditional brokerage app into this comprehensive financial rail where assets literally never sleep. By mashing up crypto, traditional equities, derivatives, and AI-driven trading into one unified interface, they aren't just offering a product anymore. They are offering an ecosystem specifically designed to maximize how often and how fast your money moves. Section 3. The distribution war. Closed versus open ecosystems. Robinhood isn't the only player realizing that the future is all about moving assets. We're witnessing a global clash between two totally different philosophies right now. On one side, we have Robinhood's closed proprietary ecosystem. And sure, they have a massive head start with 28 million existing customers, but the experience is ultimately an app-bound walled garden. On the flip side, we have the Xstocks and Kraken model. This is an open ecosystem philosophy. They actively encourage users to withdraw these tokenized certificates to their own private wallets, plugging them into decentralized finance partnerships across networks like Solana. They essentially want to be the neutral layer powering a broader internet of value. And to put that into perspective, this isn't just theory for 5 years down the line. It is a multiplayer arena today. The hard data from RWA.xyz in July 2026 shows hundreds of millions of dollars already flowing through these open competitors. Securitize has over $250 million in on-chain value for their SEZ token alone, and Xstocks has hundreds of millions locked up across different tokenized equities. Users are already figuring out how to use these assets dynamically, collateralizing them, sending them to wallets, and trading them on decentralized exchanges.
Section 4. The New Business Moat.
So what does this deep dive actually mean for future business models, whether you're in finance or any other digital industry? It completely redefines the modern distribution mode. The ultimate competitive advantage going forward isn't necessarily about inventing a brand new, shiny asset. Actually, scratch that. It's almost entirely about engineering the regulatory packaging, the user interface, and the distribution rails that make existing assets, like stocks, or even in-game digital items, move faster, further, and more frequently. It's about building the playground where assets are endlessly utilized.
So, what should you take away from all this? Well, whether you're building in fintech, gaming, or software, you've got to optimize for asset velocity over single-use sales. You absolutely must prioritize regulatory-friendly packaging and crystal-clear onboarding, because as that OpenAI warning showed us, user misunderstanding is your biggest risk. You need to design for 24/7 global accessibility. And finally, build structures that actually allow your assets to move fluidly across different channels and use cases.
Because at the end of the day, the platforms that win over the next decade will be the ones that transform static balances into dynamic, multi-purpose tools. The future belongs to those who make assets move, not just those who make them. Robinhood's massive infrastructure play isn't really about the blockchain technology itself. It's about owning the velocity of money. Which leaves us with a critical question to examine in your own strategy. When you look at what your team is building today, are you just selling a static product? Are you building the distribution rail that dictates how it moves, how it's reused, and how it scales? Think deeply about that. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.